Astria Ascending is a turn-based JRPG with a hand-drawn art style released in September of 2021. The game has input from some incredibly skilled people. Kazushika Nojima, the writer from Final Fantasy VII, 8, and 10. Hitoshi Sakimoto, the musical talent behind Final Fantasy XII. As well as Akihiko Yoshida, who worked on Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy IX, and 14. With that level of talent behind this game, there are some serious expectations. Does Astria Ascending live up to that kind of scrutiny? Let's get into it. Be sure and like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you don't, and subscribe if you'd like to stay up to date on the uploads here on the channel, from news to reviews. So Astria Ascending was one of the games I was really looking forward to at the end of 2021. One way or another, I kind of just lost sight of it. I've spent a good chunk of December playing through it though, and I've come to some conclusions about it. The opening cinematic gives an overview of the main town, the separate races, as well as the demigods and the predicament that they are in. The town is similar to Zootopia of all things, divided into separate sections for the separate races, with a train to take you between them. This town acts as the main hub that you come back to over and over as the story progresses. It's beautifully presented, and it's actually kind of diverse, but getting around the town is clunky at best. Eventually, fast traveling does make it better, but not much. The demigods are the main characters, and there are 8 of them. Demigods are a group of people who are given special powers to defend the world of Orkanon at the cost of their life. Once they are given those powers, they have 3 years to live, which gives a pretty compelling start to the story. All of the party members are dropped on you all at once, with an extremely brief introduction, and then you're dragged into the first chapter of the story by some mumbling flying monkeys called Migmies. They send you out to fight the monsters of this world, which are called noises. The combat throughout the game is pretty standard fare for a turn-based system, with a few tweaks here and there. Like I said, you have 8 party members, and they can be swapped in and out as you see fit, each with their own classes and skills. More on that specific thing later. In battle, if you hit an enemy's elemental weakness, you gain focus points. Using those focus points, you can increase the effectiveness of an attack or a healing spell, or even the length of a buff or debuff. You can lose focus points as well if you use an element that an enemy is resistant to, nullifies, or even fully absorbs. And on that, the enemy actually has a focus meter and can buff their attacks if they keep hitting your weakness. The focus points can also be used separately on summons, which adds another tier to the system, and makes you question when to use them during extended encounters. The focus system is honestly the coolest thing about the combat system. It adds so much depth to it. I will say that the combat system does seem poorly balanced. Enemies almost always attack first, so if you land in a fight against a large number of enemies, they may wipe you out before you get a chance to react. Regular noises, even on normal difficulty, do a ton of damage and can wipe your party without much effort. Bosses even more so. And some status effect attacks are wild, stunning your entire party for multiple turns at a time, leaving you wide open to devastation. These can definitely be beat by farming money to get accessories that block those specific status effects for 10,000 lums each. I personally found that grinding is mandatory, even if you do all of the side quests. Otherwise, there was no way to progress through certain encounters. This is a JRPG though, so grinding isn't anything new and isn't exactly a bad thing. I find it fun sometimes to just zone out and blast through some fights. Outside of combat in a dungeon, the entire party's health regenerates while leaving the MP levels the same. In town, the MP regenerates as well. I find this to be cool. It allows the fights to be harder and have more damage done throughout them, since you don't have to expend MP after every single fight, returning to fighting form. The only issue is that at least in the beginning of the game, MP is an extremely precious resource. Spells and skills cost a ton of mana, and ethers aren't exactly growing on trees. So that leads to more than a few trips back to town to regen as you explore these dungeons. Thankfully, there are no random encounters, so you can avoid the noises as you see fit. Otherwise, the dungeon exploration can be pretty neat. There's some light puzzle solving and some intricate designs to find some hidden chests. As per usual, I will do my absolute best to be completely devoid of spoilers here in regard to the story of the game. For me personally, the story is the absolute key element to any JRPG to keep me invested. Otherwise, I eventually lose interest and get called away to some other game that's just enticing me. Astria Ascending starts off with the cool concept of the heroes all only having 3 months left of their 3 years of life as demigods. This concept is extremely fascinating for me, and for some reason reminds me of one of my favorite novels, Warbreaker. This world is set up where all of the races are in harmony by consuming magic fruit and working within the will of the gods. Dissonance is rising due to a group operating in the shadows, attempting to make changes to the world. On paper, that all sounds interesting enough, but the game doesn't do a good enough job of keeping the interest and intrigue up. After 15 hours or so in the game, I was looking longingly at other games, trying my hardest to keep my focus and finish the one that was in front of me. The story is not particularly bad, it just doesn't keep me invested. By the end of the game, I was just trying to finish it, which is a disappointment. I had come into this one with such high hopes, and maybe that's what the downfall was. Each character has their own starting class with its own skill tree that really looks like the sphere grid to me. These skill trees are called ascension trees. After every battle, you gain SP, which can be used to unlock new nodes in each tree. As you progress through the story, you earn crests. Crests are then used to unlock main, sub, or support jobs for each character. They all have 3 different jobs available to them, ranging from the tank guardian class to the healer white mage to an alchemist that can just use items to deal massive damage. There's a good bit of variety that allows you to customize the party to fit how you want every character to play. When you choose a character's main job, it actually evolves the overall aesthetic of that demigod, which is a cool way to kind of personalize their look a little bit as well. Each job unlocked has its own separate ascension tree, which allows you to further configure how you want that character's stats to be, what spells you want them to have, and so on. If you go through the entire game and complete all of the extra content, you can end up with 4 separate active skill trees on all 8 characters, which feels like a bit much to me. Overall, I like the idea of having so much choice and evolution available in the sphere grid, ascension trees, but it feels like there's more here than there needs to be. The place where Astria Ascending truly shines is the art. The art style is definitely reminiscent of Vanillaware, but beautiful nonetheless. The backgrounds for combat, as well as each area of the game, are painstakingly drawn out. The character art is detailed and extremely pleasing to the eye, and with so many different class options, it's impressive that they were able to keep that up across the entire game. I love how wildly different the races are, from the lizard-like Zefts to the bubble boy Peskas, or the lion-like Arctan. All of the races in this game are so unique, and it's so cool to see it that way. Through the whole game, I can't say that there was a time that I actually didn't like the design of an area, a noise, or a character. In my opinion, the art is unquestioningly the highest quality part of this game. The soundtrack for Astria Ascending is actually another high point, particularly the combat tracks and the Temple of Shala track. While grinding in the game, you will definitely hear the battle themes quite a bit. I've actually enjoyed listening to the soundtrack on a loop while working on writing this review. The sound effects in combat, though, can feel a little bit hollow, such as when you cast the earth spells, and when a character misses an attack, it just doesn't feel right. But that's definitely a nitpick. Every JRPG has to have a minigame that you can play throughout. Whether it's The Witcher and Gwent, or Final Fantasy VIII and Triple Triad, there has to be something. And that rings true here. In Astria Ascending, there is a minigame called J-Ster. It's quite basically a game of token flipping. Each token has a strength level that they can, quote, attack at. It has to be higher than another token's strength in order to flip it. Each token's edge is different as well. Some edges are weaknesses, some are resistance, and some are standard full-strength edges. And the tokens can have their edges completely rotated as well if you're playing a standard-style game. The winner is the person with the most tokens facing up on the board. There are some different permutations, like locking the rotation or hiding the opponent's deck. It definitely takes some getting used to, and it requires a different way of thinking to win. The first instinct I had was to just flip everything the second I could, which generally ended in a loss. It turned out what I had to do was be patient and focus on the resistance edges as defense, and try and trap the opponent into placing tokens that wouldn't flip anything. Tokens for J-Ster can be gained by beating other players and claiming their tokens, as quest rewards, in some chests, or even through combat. It's a pretty fun little minigame, but it definitely doesn't top Blitzball or Gwent by any stretch. Astria Ascending is, on the surface, a solid enough attempt at a full JRPG. After spending my time with the game and diving deeper, I came away disappointed. I'm a huge fan of JRPGs, and I do my best to try and play most of them that release every year. 2021 was home to a number of really great examples of the genre, like Shin Megami Tensei V, Tales of Arise, or Bravely Default 2. Astria Ascending just does not stack up to games of that caliber, and it's a shame. The concept of multiple classes that evolve over time is awesome. The addition of focus points to increase the effectiveness in combat was fun, and the art style is infatuating, a complete joy to look at and explore. But between a lackluster story, forced grinding, some off voice acting, clunky navigation, and poorly balanced combat, I just can't say that I really recommend going out to play the game. Astria Ascending is on Game Pass though, so you can definitely give it a try there if you'd like with no regrets. Honestly, I'd really only recommend the game if you're hard-pressed for a JRPG. There are better options out there that you'll most likely have more fun with. Have any of y'all gotten to play through this one yet? What did you think of it? Are my feelings unfounded here? Let me know in the comments. I hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe.